Hello and welcome to the very first episode of In the Gap. This is a new platform where we strive to bring the extraordinary stories of ordinary people, particularly immigrants who come to Australia from all different parts of the world trying to make a better life for themselves. Just to give you a little context of what In the Gap really is. In 2011, Coldplay released an album called Milo Xyloto. If you guys haven't heard it, it's a really nice album. One of the songs from that album was Every Teardrop is a Waterfall. And within that song, there is a lyric that goes something like, maybe I'm in the dark, maybe I'm on my knees, maybe I'm in the gap between the two trapezes. So that is where the idea of being in the gap comes from. All of us within this life are somehow within a transition. Whether you're trying to let go of a job and try to find a new one, or maybe like us, maybe you're an immigrant who's trying to let go of a life that you might have had in your home country and trying to establish a life for yourself in another country, in another part of the world. Or you might be looking for better relationships, better friends, better health. In one way or the other, we are all in this gap together. So jumping right in, the very first episode for this podcast that I wanted to do was I wanted it to be close to home. And for that reason, I have brought on somebody that I really admire professionally and personally every single day. We'll get to talk about her professional side as well as her personal struggles with coming into Australia and establishing herself over here as an immigrant. So please welcome Fabaiha Farooq. Thank you so much for being the very first guest of In the Gap.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we'll dive right into it. So I wouldn't give any spoilers to anyone listening. So let's hear it from you. So Fabio, just tell us a little bit about who you are, your initial years, where you were born, and your education up till your graduation.
All right. So I was born in Karachi, Pakistan.
Yep.
Both my parents are doctors. And I have done my bachelor's in business administration.
Yep.
With a major in marketing. And from I've done my BBS from IBA. And then I've done my master's in business analytics from Imperial College London. So that's my education background. Yeah.
Your education background, interesting. So business administration, which is a more foundational degree, and you decided to build on top of that with a master's degree in business analytics. So how does that work, going from a transition from BBA, which I believe is more of a business and management related degree, to data analytics, which is more technical and more closer to computer science? How do you bridge that gap?
So I think that is where my expertise and my USP lies in, that I can understand both of these things very easily.
Yep.
And that's where my interests lie, and everything that I love doing lies, right? So basically, after I've done my BBA in marketing, and when you have a really nice teacher, she really inspired me into marketing and FMCG marketing, to be very specific, retail and stuff like that. And that's what my perspective of marketing was when I graduated, and that is what I wanted to do until I came across marketing analytics and business analytics. And that is where my idea kind of changed from a traditional marketing perspective, like advertising and stuff, to more digital marketing and more towards really understanding customer behavior, using large amount of data to understand it. So this basically came across when I was looking for what I wanted to do for my master's, and I was just looking at marketing courses like Masters in Marketing. But then I came across business analytics, and when I read that course outline and the courses that were in there, it just really spoke to me. I've always loved numbers.
So for a layman such as myself, I have no idea of how data analytics work. If you can just give me a brief rundown of how is marketing utilizing data different from marketing in the traditional sense, from what we study in, for example, the BBA courses.
So in BBA, the courses that, I don't know if they've changed for now. It's been a long while since I've graduated.
When did you graduate, by the way?
2014.
2014. That was your bachelor's.
Yeah.
And when did you graduate from your master's?
2016.
That was 2016. Okay. So continue.
So it's been a while, but what we studied back then was mostly about print media, advertising, TVCs,
Yep.
marketing in the shops, retail, like in terms of retail marketing, like, and it was mostly from a perspective of FMCG, like Unilever or P&G. Think of these two companies and like what they're doing in Pakistan and how they are utilizing marketing, bottom of the pyramid marketing, things like how you are marketing to the lower strata. So there, it's not about the profits; it's about the volumes and volumes. How you have how you have different SKUs for different stratas and everything. So it was from a very traditional marketing perspective, price, promotion, place, and stuff like that.
Yes.
But when you talk about digital marketing, it's very much based on not what a person in the boardroom thinks is a good marketing strategy versus what data really says is a good marketing strategy. So that's where the main difference lies, like really utilizing data, understanding customer behavior, taking that into the marketing. And when you talk about digital marketing, of course, when we talk about marketing on Facebook or Google or stuff like that, then you have a lot more data coming in as well, right? As opposed to if you have put a poster in Imtiaz in Karachi, for example, you don't really have any kind of data to back it, right? But when you talk about putting an advertisement online, then you have all sort of data that will define your marketing strategies and how you optimize it and make it better.
Right. So particularly Pakistan, I believe, would have been a little late to this race of advertising based on data and marketing based on data, wouldn't it? Because I believe that Pakistan largely still, and not just Pakistan, a lot of the developing countries in South Asia, they still rely on just the traditional manners of advertising, don't they? They still really haven't jumped on board with the data side of advertising.
So it's much better now. And in terms of advertising, I would say that they are doing it online for sure. But where I think that it's difficult as compared to a developed country is that the customer, where the customer is. So when you talk about the online market and the internet penetration in Pakistan, that really defines that what kind of people can you reach through digital marketing or internet versus and on the flip side, it's also about the habits of the customer, right? So if you talk about habits, like when we were in Pakistan, it was a thing like monthly grocery shopping. There's a list, you go to Imtiaz, you get the list, and that's the monthly shopping and going to the store and getting it. That kind of concept still is there, right? So that is where you will have difficulty moving these customers to an e-commerce, for example, right, for their grocery needs. So that is also one of the challenges that we have in Pakistan.
I guess that is the biggest challenge, isn't it? Because e-commerce still isn't as penetrative in a market like Pakistan or India, for example. India, I believe, would be a little further ahead than Pakistan, but still, considering the population ratio, there's still a large chunk of the population that would still rely on, like you said, traditional means of getting their groceries every month.
Yeah, and it's also about the supply chain and everything. Like, right, for example, over here we have Amazon and it's just the same day delivery and stuff like that. So of course, if you don't have that in your country, and then of course you have this habit as well, so it will take some time to change that habit, of course. Right. Interesting. So I'll come back to your journey basically. So you finished your bachelor's degree in BBA in 2014, and then you went for your master's degree to the Imperial College London in 2016. You finished that in 2016. So after that, how has your professional career been? So we got married in 2016.
Right. I should remember that.
You should remember that. And and then I started working after our entire thing happened. So that is where I started working for. And because I really wanted to delve into data in terms of marketing, but I was in Pakistan, so I was having a little difficulty in terms of where a company or a place, a workplace where I could really enjoy my work.
And have that data available to you that you can actually play with.
So one of the internships I did in London was in Kantar World Panel. It was basically on price elasticity. You want me to go into details?
It's up to you.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah. So in a nutshell, it was about price elasticity in terms of how much change in a price would deter a customer from buying a particular thing. And my specific study was on tea and coffees, basically. Just tea and coffee.
Like how far you can stretch the price point
Yeah, so
without
for
losing the
example,
customer.
if your price changes by X percentage, does the customer behavior change or not?
Right.
So that was the whole. So basically, the data was all the retail data that you have from, like you would have from there, you would have from Tesco and Sainsbury and stuff. But like in Pakistan, you'll have from Imtiaz or Nahid and stuff like that. So basically, analyzing that and defining that which brands were price sensitive, while which brands were not. That even if you change the prices of those brands, customers would still buy it.
Yeah.
So that was the study, right? So that was my study in Kantar World Panel. And when I was moving to Pakistan, I was in contact with Kendall Millwood Brown, which was in Pakistan.
Okay.
It was, it's a research agency. So I thought I would be doing something very similar to that. And that is why I joined that. But my expectations were not met. So I think I worked there 6-7 months.
Okay.
Then I moved to K Electric, and my expectations were, but of course, not met there as well.
Right. So you ultimately ended up
With Daraz.
With Daraz, right? And Daraz is obviously
After three companies within 1 year.
Within 1 year.
Not something I'm proud of, but yeah, I think I had to move to find where I enjoyed working.
Fair enough. And how long have you worked for Daraz for?
I think 5-6 years now.
5 years now.
Yeah.
5 years now. And you were the
regional head of retention and loyalty. So I was looking at customer retention and building loyalty of customers.
What does that mean, customer retention, in an e-commerce perspective?
So there are two, when you're thinking about your e-commerce website or anything, right, that how much of your customers are visiting you and how much are they returning in terms of orders.
Right.
So these are two different things, right? One is customer engagement.
Yes.
Where you are looking at your app stickiness. That's what we call it. That how many times is a user coming to your
coming back to your
app. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the other, in terms of customer retention, is how many times is the user coming to order from you. So my specialty was in terms of retaining customers year on year, as well as getting users who were like occasional users to a loyal user. So that was what I was working at.
Right. And this was all back in Pakistan that you joined up with Daraz and you started working over there. So fast forward, you came to Australia in what year?
2019.
2019. Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So in 2019, did you let go of Daraz at that point, or what happened there?
So when I joined Daraz, I think the expectation was like within 6 months I had to move to Australia. And in one of the reasons that when I was thinking about whether to join Daraz or not, I was like, what's the point? I'll join a company for 6 months and leave it. And, is that good? I've already switched like 2-3 companies in 1 year. Is that good for my CV or not? Like, you have all these questions, right?
Right.
When you were starting out.
Yes.
So that was the expectation, but fortunately or unfortunately, that didn't happen. And when I was finally coming to Australia, I of course resigned from my position as well. But I had a very, very accommodating manager he gave me the opportunity that you can work from there, and you can work remotely, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
And fast forward to 4 years later.
Yeah. So you continued working at Daraz remotely from Australia
From Australia,
for 4 years.
for 4 years. Yeah.
How does the time difference work?
So, of course, it was tough. It was very tough, especially after having a kid.
Yeah.
But of course, your support, of course, was the main thing, and that is how we kind of managed the whole timing issue and everything. Like I was working till 1, 2 a.m. sometimes.
Yeah, because for people who don't know, Pakistan and Australia have roughly a 6 to 5 hour time difference. So I can imagine if somebody's Pakistan's afternoon is close to 8 or 9 p.m.
Yeah.
in Australia. So
Yeah.
so
And
you
day end is like midnight,
midnight
but Pakistani culture being as is, late start and late finish.
late finishes. Yes.
So that would like extend to like 2 a.m. and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So, in between all of this, during these 4 years, also coming into motherhood, becoming a new mother, and then obviously balancing the challenge of having a young child while still working. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure there are women out there who would be listening to you who might be either who have already moved to Australia or some other country, or are planning to do that, and they're confused whether to let go of a job or immediately begin a job. Some might be thinking about starting a family, some might be already pregnant and on that way. So I guess your opinion and your insight on that would be really helpful for some women out there who might be listening. So tell me, once you came into Australia and eventually you had a child, how, coming from a South Asian perspective, first off, from a because we know, and anyone from South Asia listening out there would understand that child rearing in our countries, it's much more of a collective exercise. You have an entire support system in terms of your family and your extended family that is there to help you with a newborn. Especially when you are when you are a first time mother, you hardly know on how to handle a child. You can read all you want, you can do all the research that you want, but when you actually have that child in your hand and you actually have to take care of it, it's a completely different ball game, right? So I suppose the first question would be, how did you find facing all of those challenges of being a new mom, while being on your own? Because essentially you did not have any family or family members over here helping you. So what was that entire journey like from pregnancy to childbirth to having the child with you and taking care of them?
I think one point that you are forgetting is that it was also COVID.
Yes, for sure.
So it was completely different.
Yes. It's something that nobody can give you any reference on.
Yeah. So as for pregnancy, right? Alhamdulillah. The pregnancy was very smooth. There wasn't any issues. I was fine. Like some women have it very, very tough. So thank God I did not have that. So it was easier for me to continue working till the very end and everything.
Yes.
I had a 3-month maternity leave. And my mom was here for a month. 25 days.
Okay.
Kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So she came when Insha was born, and like she stayed for 25 days with me. So that was a lot of support as well.
Yep.
Her being here and helping me with those initial days, those are really tough. So yeah, that was really nice. I think my maternity leave was also very nice. I think it was when I had to go back to work while handling a baby and working from home.
At odd hours.
Where we were not entitled to any childcare subsidy or anything, and we couldn't afford the childcare as well.
Yes.
It was difficult.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. Especially with the hours that I had, like we couldn't really, even if we wanted to, we couldn't really take the normal childcare route because I wasn't working from 8 a.m. anyways, right?
Yeah.
My working hours were completely different.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a struggle, as well as not having anybody else to look after the child, and you have to do it as well. So that's when like your support was, I think, the main thing that helped me get across, or try to get across at least. And I remember that I think around her 5 to 6 month mark, it got really difficult. There was a lot of pressure in terms of work as well, and that is where I had to decide to prioritize some things in terms of work, let go of some projects, give them to somebody else, like prioritize myself as well. Because before having kids, even after, like sometimes you just want to do everything, right? You want to excel in your career, you want to do everything, right? Like you have this passion, you have this energy, and you really want to do it. But I think it was the first time in my life at that time that I was like, I need to prioritize. I would burn out otherwise. So that is where I had the conversation and deprioritized some projects, prioritized the others, and really sorted my work at that time. And of course your support, like I mentioned, couldn't have done without it.
It's very interesting that you mentioned this, like whether you're an immigrant or not, or whether you're a citizen of any country, but it is a fact that once a child has entered that conversation, once you have become a mother, ultimately, whether people would like to admit it or not, but it is women's careers that do suffer at some point. And at some point, like you said, prioritizing yourself, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame associated with it.
For sure,
but unfortunately, it is that when it comes to choosing between looking after your child or excelling at your career, more often than not, most women would choose, obviously, looking after their child. Because that's your child. Because that's your child, right? But it is unfortunate that they have to make that choice.
I think, especially now that I have decided to take a step back from work, like this year, with 2 children, I think I can feel that very much, and I could feel that even in the people I knew who were moms and who were career oriented and everything, but they were having real difficulty in terms of juggling everything, because there's this unrealistic expectation that you have no life other than work, right? And that you will work like you would work, I don't know, when you were 23, 24, and you were really, like, I'm still motivated, but like in that sense that this was your thing, like your career was your only focus, you had no other focus in life.
Right. So I want to talk about the difference that you might have felt between like obviously living here, there is a difference that you see between even young women's attitudes towards their careers and then settling down and having a family. Like obviously because of our cultural the cultural pressures that we have back in our country, or in a lot of other conservative societies like South Asia or other countries, what I felt is that women would invariably be they would prioritize their family or being married or having children first compared to prioritizing their careers. Whereas you come over here and you have a look at most of the young women over here who are career oriented and who are driven, they would prioritize their 20s and large parts of their 30s to getting to where they want to be in their career, and then having a think about that, okay, I have kind of achieved or solidified my position where I want to be at, and now I can take a step back and then have a family, for example. So what are your opinions of that? Like, if given a choice, would you want to go down that path as well?
That's an interesting question. I think it depends on what you prioritize again, right?
Yeah,
Because you will have to let go of one thing or the other,
of course.
and there are pros and cons in each of them, right? Having kids late means, I don't know,
Yep.
you have to get them married off as well, right? For me. Yeah. So of course you need to decide what's important for you and what you want to do. If you ask me, would I do it differently? Maybe not. There's a time for everything, I think.
Yep.
Even if I did not have kids and I waited a certain amount of time to have kids, I would still have to give this time to the kids, whether right now or later, right?
Yes.
So I think there's no correct answer. Like whatever suits you, your values or your principles or what you want from life, as long as you're happy doing it, that's the right choice for you.
Right. Unfortunately, but this is not a comment on what is right or what is wrong as far as societies or culture is concerned, but unfortunately a lot of young women back in Pakistan or India or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, any of the South Asian countries or any of the other conservative societies, would not have the luxury of having that choice to prioritize their career even if they wanted to. Because after a certain age in that society, marriage becomes less of a choice than a sword that's basically hanging over your head, that that you have to get married by a certain date or by a certain age,
because there's an expiry date.
Because unfortunately that is how our society has unfortunately viewed marriage, that all young girls have a best by date, as far as marriage is concerned, because then you don't have all those desirable rishtas that you would otherwise get. But unfortunately, that's a discussion for another point. Coming back, so you come to Australia, you have your first child. Were you a permanent resident at that point when you had your child?
No,
you were not. That is a very interesting point that a lot of people would want to hear. A lot of women, I believe, who come to Australia and then obviously they're not permanent residency holders, and obviously they're not citizens, so they are not entitled to the same kind of the same kind of benefits that a PR holder or a citizen might get from the healthcare system, right? So for any young woman out there who is about to have a child or is planning to start a family, but they are unaware of how the Australian healthcare system works in terms of childbirth and everything, can you please just give us a rundown of your own experience with, first off, what the Australian healthcare system is like? How did you find it? And like, if there is any expectant mother out there who's listening to you, what kind of advice can you give to them to make their process a little easier?
Okay, so I would first start from my experience, and then I will move on to stuff that I want to tell. Right?
Sure.
So I think when we first found out that we were pregnant, the first few appointments, we were given a long list of tests to get. And we went to, I think, one of the laboratories here, and we were quoted, I think, a total of like $500 or something, remember? And honestly, at that time, we didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
And I was like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to afford it? And like, what's the use of the insurance that we have? What insurance covers? What insurance doesn't cover? Like, and nobody would give you
a straight answer.
Because the birth itself is not straightforward, right? There are a million things that can happen, or the kind of care that you require might be different. So they can't just say, okay, it will all be covered, don't worry. They can't tell you that. And that was the most worrying part, like for for us to start with, right? Like, because you're thinking about what will the insurance cover, what will not cover, we can't afford. And when we went to this laboratory itself, like they said that insurance will not cover it. And like, it was just a puzzle that I needed to solve. And I reached out to some people that I knew in terms of, how was your experience and everything. So from my experience, and I would like to tell that to all of the women who are maybe not on PR and have private insurance and are pregnant or want to get pregnant, everything can be covered mostly. It depends on your situation, but in terms of laboratory as well, you need to find out which ones would just take your private insurance and not charge you first. They will directly charge to the private insurance. So you need to kind of find that laboratory for you. For us, that was laboratory pathology. If anyone wants to go to that one.
Yep.
And they would just take my private insurance and bill them directly, no extra cost to us.
Yep.
So that was that. Then I chose to go through the public system, because with public system, most of like the chances of everything to be covered were higher than going to the private route.
Yes. The one disclaimer I would want to add over here is that if you are not a permanent residency holder and if you're not a citizen, chances are that private healthcare for your childbirth is almost not an option for you. I mean, it is, but but the bill is going to stack up so high that you would rather not. I mean,
it depends on their.
I'm talking about from an average immigrant's perspective.
Yeah,
they would not have access to the kind of funds that are required for a private hospital or for a private childbirth, right? But from our own experience, I believe I can tell people who might be in that situation that the public healthcare system in Australia, we found it good enough that it takes you through the whole process of the pregnancy and childbirth and postnatal care without any hiccups.
Yeah. So the whole thing is pretty good. The only thing that you might have an advantage with a private hospital is the afterbirth, right? So after birth, your partner can stay with you, for example. You have your private room and stuff like that, and all of the whistles that come with it, right?
Yeah.
So that is the only, I think, advantageous part. How your birth goes and the level of care that you get, I don't think that would be any different from a private or public. And of course, we are not the subject matter experts, and there are a lot of resources that I didn't know in my first birth, but in the second one I knew. And there was one podcast, Australian Birth Stories, and I would advise anyone who's going for birth in Australia to listen to those podcasts. And really, so she has done a brilliant job of documenting all of these birth stories in different scenarios, and so you can be mentally prepared of, okay, if I have such and such situation, what are the protocols in Australia, what might be my options, and be more aware and make like good decisions, like based on good information that you already have and a background that you already have.
Yep.
Unlike the first time where I did not know what my options were, what did it mean, a certain thing meant, and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So having that education is good as well.
Yeah, for sure. I looking back, I feel like the first childbirth was like, I don't know how we got through it, but somehow everything just fell into place at the right time for some unknown reason, right? And for any young couples out there who might be close to having a child and might not have a permanent residency at this point, we just want to let you know that, look, even if you are on a student visa or a temporary visa, you definitely have a healthcare, a private health insurance. That is part of your visa deal, right? That you need to have a private health insurance. The good thing is that the private health insurance that you hold, even on a student visa, which we had at the time of our first child, is still enough to cover childbirth, particularly, especially if you're going through the public healthcare route.
Just one thing, there's a 12-month waiting period.
Yes, that is very important. That is very important to know. So if you if you want to have a child, make sure that that your child is being born at least 12 months after you've held the your insurance
Private
policy,
insurance, yeah.
your private insurance policy.
And for us, it was really complicated in terms of, whether it would be the birth date or because I was pregnant already. Like, we had so many questions, and like, would it be when he got his private insurance, because I got it like a few months later. So there was all these questions that we were like worried about, and as I said, nobody was giving us a straight answer. But for anyone out there, the straight answer is that 12 months waiting period is what you need, basically. So just make sure that birth date after that.
And the fortunate thing for people in that situation is that no matter what company you have your health insurance policy with, all companies, their customer services are pretty good and they're very helpful. All you need to do is you need to have your information and your set of questions in the right order, and just go to them and ask them the right questions, and they will provide you with the right information. Right. Okay, so I'll shift the conversation away from having children and everything. So okay, you have 2 daughters now, you have 2 young ones. How did that impact working full-time as a mom of 2?
So as a mom of 2, so when this time I had like a 4-month maternity leave, 1 month extra from my last one, and it felt like a vacation, honestly. This time it was much easier. I was more mentally prepared than I was with my first. I was much more knowledgeable and prepared in terms of the birth stories, like I mentioned, the podcast and everything. I had done my research. I was mentally prepared, right?
Yep.
So, and this time around, because I knew how much I struggled with the first time, and now that I had progressed in my career as well and everything, so I decided to have help this time before I went to work. So from day one, I decided that I wanted to have help to be able to manage both my work and the kids at the same time.
And so just to put it into context, at this point within your professional career, you are what title did you have at this point?
Regional Head of Retention and Loyalty.
Regional Head of, and that means that you are responsible for not just one market but multiple.
So the whole time I was in the RAS, I was responsible for all the markets, but previously I was just the CRM manager, like looking at one channel, that was the unpaid channel. But now I was looking at all of the channels and the overall strategy in terms of retaining customers and looking at more from a more strategic perspective rather than just CRM. So in context, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility professionally for somebody who's juggling 2 kids while having no family, no extended family, no grandparents, no parents here to help you with it. And having a husband who is also working full time and he's not available to help you. And he never works from home. And he has the longest hours.
Yes, that is for another for another episode, I believe. But so now you have finally actually decided to take a step away from your career. So walk us through that. So having been so focused and so driven in your career up to this point, it must have been a struggle to actually come to terms with the question that when do I actually take a step back?
I think it was one of the most difficult decisions.
Of course.
Especially because I loved working.
Of course.
I loved doing what I was doing. Like, it was the ideal role for me. Like, it was a very, very tough decision. But I think, like I said, you just need to prioritize, right? And I think for me, there were a couple of things that were happening. One was when my child told me to stop talking to her because she was in a meeting. That was like one of, like, what do you say?
One of the moments that shattered
that thing. Like, what am I doing? What am I running after? What am I gaining? Like, you get these existential questions in your mind, and you need to think about, like, what is important to me, right?
Yeah.
So that was there. And of course, the childcare itself was so expensive that it was taking a big chunk out of my salary, right? So when I think about my profits from that revenue,
Yes. It's not worth it.
yeah, so like it was slightly worth it,
It's
but
slightly worth it,
slightly
but-
worth it, but you start to question all of these things,
Yes.
right? Like your
Yes.
a sizable portion of your income is going towards just childcare, and then your child is also being neglected and everything, and then
And you see that in their behavior.
in their behavior, and then like you said that maybe previously we didn't have the, and of course it's a privilege, it is a privilege to be able to take a step back as well.
Yes, of course.
Not everyone can afford, like if you ask Fabaiha, that was like 4 years ago, could she afford it? No. But now alhamdulillah we could,
We could at
like
least
at
survive.
least we could, yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
that again is a privilege, and I think when making the decision, like I make an Excel sheet. I made an Excel sheet to see what the cost benefit analysis, what would it means in terms of financially and everything, and so yeah,
Making an Excel sheet like a true IBA grad.
like a true IB grad.
So looking forward, at the moment you're enjoying your break away from work. How is life now post work with the kids?
I think I have a lot more patience than I had previously.
Right?
Like previously, because you just don't have the time, right? You don't have the time to stop, you don't have the time, you're just like on the go, like I need to get this done, I need to feed the kids, then get back to that meeting or get back to that work, or like your mind is constantly
You're constantly thinking.
like even when I'm putting the kids to sleep, I'm thinking about all the ways I can do something different next time, right?
Yep.
So just having that mental capacity now to just focus on the kids, really enjoy their childhood, their little things,
Yeah, of
I
course.
think that has been very rewarding.
Yeah, of course, and it also makes you realize, for people who don't know, if you are working in Australia, there are obviously with Australian employees, you are entitled to at least getting a 6-month maternity break, I believe, depending on what employer they are, and then on top of that, you can also choose to take an unpaid step away from work with the government providing some kind of subsidy to you during that period.
Yeah. So if you are a PR and after having the PR, there's a waiting period for
Yes.
you to qualify for those maternity leaves where the government is subsidizing or giving you a subsidy. So you have that option, and once that runs out, you still have that option to discuss with your employer whether you want to return part-time or full-time and stuff like that. But unfortunately, in my case, there was no discussion. It was like expected that I will come full-time,
Yeah.
especially because I was the only one working remotely.
And your situation was also different because you weren't working for an Australian employer. So your employer really wasn't bound by Australian rules and regulations to give you that extended maternity leave. Fair enough. So looking forward, do you see yourself working again in the near future, or are you what's going through your head in terms of your career at this moment?
Do I miss the thing I was doing? Yes, I do miss it. I miss looking at data, and like I'm really passionate about it, so of course I miss that. In terms of my career, I would like where I am in terms of my life right now, where I have 2 little kids, I think I would want to start something of my own so that I can work on my own timings. What that would be, that's something I still need to figure out.
No.
But I think I will take this break to really think about it, because for some time, whether it's a job even, like it doesn't have to be like a business that I start. Even if it's a job, I know what's important for me. I need that flexibility in terms of work, whatever that is, whether it's a business or a job itself or anything. And that is, if I have that,
All right.
that is what I need. So whatever it may be.
Interesting. So, close to wrapping this up, the conversation, there might be a lot of young women out there who might be listening to you at the moment, and they might be women who might be early in their careers, who might be thinking about immigrating to either Australia or some other country, and they might be confused about whether to start a family or follow their career, or how to manage everything. So based on your experience and everything that you have seen over the past 4 years coming to Australia, having this journey from being on a temporary visa to and having a child during that time, to getting a PR, and then now consciously taking a step away from your career. So based on all your experience, what is that one nugget of truth that you believe that you can give to a younger version of yourself, to just to help them on their path?
I think the main thing I would say would be that really understand where you are, and of course never compare. Like, I think one of the things that we have is, if I take a step back, what about all of these other women who are still working, and like, never compare. I think that is one of the biggest things, and just look at your life, what's important to you right now, and where do you want to take it. Really analyze, like, have a conversation with yourself. I think that is very important. Have a conversation with yourself.
And if you have a partner, with your partner.
Of course, with your partner, but first you need to know what you want.
Of course.
To be able to have that fruitful discussion, right?
Of course. Figure out what
like,
you really want.
Don't take an action without talking to your partner.
Yeah, of course.
But
yeah, just resigned.
But like, have that conversation with yourself. Like, what are your pros and cons? Where are you in your life? What do you want from your life? Like, really think about it.
Yes, that I believe is very important.
Because we're so much in a rat race from the minute, like, O levels, A levels, university,
yes,
job,
true,
promotion, everything, that you kind of lose perspective, right?
Yes.
So just take a step back. Really have these hard conversations with yourself and really understand what you want. If career is what you want, then go for it.
Yes. But also remember that if you're going for a career, like you said, there are pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
Right? If you go after one thing, you are invariably going to lose out on something else.
Yeah.
So
like, there's so much you can do, right?
Yeah, of course. And to add to your point, figure out what you want, but don't necessarily assign a dollar value to everything, because there are some things. There are some things in life that
that are priceless, like MasterCard.
Like MasterCard, hashtag MasterCard, but
not sponsored, not an ad.
But the point is that there are some things in life that you need to understand are important for you, regardless of what your money situation is. And first and foremost of that is your mental health, and you might be earning a lot of money, but doesn't necessarily mean that you might be enjoying the life that you're leading.
Again, like, it's a privilege if you can take a step back, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So whatever your situation is, wherever you are, whatever your stage of life is, really have those conversations with yourself and know what's important to you in this point in time. Sometimes money is important, right? You need to get to something. You need to achieve something.
Yeah. And I believe part of our conversation that we had was that your children are only going to go through their childhood once.
Yeah.
And you can prioritize other things in the moment, because you might be financially constrained, or you might want to buy that new car, or you might want to move into your dream house or whatever, but you realize that your children are only going to grow up once, and if you miss it, you will not get another chance at it.
Yeah, of course. When we start, like, of course, it's a privilege that we could survive without, but yes, of course, we had to put some things on the back burner in terms of our finances.
Yep.
So yeah, you always have to let go of something. And for us, I think it was important to give the kids that time, settle them down. My youngest is only like 9 months now. She's too young to put into day. Like, I know the children younger who go to daycare, but I was just not comfortable. So it's all about you, what you want, what your thoughts are, what your perspective is. For me, she was too young. I didn't want to put her in a daycare right now. I don't want to separate her from me. And that is what ultimately led me to my decision, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much for being part of this very first conversation. It was really, really great. It's a different paradigm, a different way to understand somebody who you might live with, but try and understand look at things from their perspective. Anyways, so thank you so much for viewing this episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, kindly subscribe, leave a comment, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you have some suggestions on what other kind of conversations would you want being discussed on this platform, particularly from an immigration point of view. Look, there are a lot of people out there who have faced challenges or situations that you might be going through, and like I said, this platform can provide the necessary guidance that can help you solve, find answers to a lot of your questions. So kindly comment, subscribe, share this with people who might find it useful, and join us again for other conversations such as these. This has been In the Gap. I have been your host, Hussain, and I'll see you on the next one.